My guest today understands something most Western leaders, journalists, and activists don't. The Middle East does not run on intentions, feelings, or slogans. It runs on power and respect. He's a Druze Arab Zionist, a former IDF Special Forces officer, and someone who has lived inside the realities of Israel, Syria, Lebanon, and the wider Arab world. Today, we're going to talk about what's happening right now in the Middle East and why Western restraint is often interpreted here as weakness, not morality. Mansur, thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me. The pleasure is all mine.
Why does the Middle East operate on power and respect while the West operates on intentions and optics? Why does restraint signal strength in Europe, but in weakness in the Middle East? Can you unpack that for me?
Yes, that's a very good question. And the answer is quite simple, I have to say. People need to understand that different cultures have different language, different behavioral, different codes of morality, respect, and the way that they basically conduct their life. And to come and to assume that because you are born in Europe or in the US, where it took hundreds, if not even thousands of years of Judeo-Christian values to bring you to the point where you are today with freedom, democracy, and ChatGPT. And to come and think, oh, then everybody must think like I do, is very naive and often becomes also very dangerous and very devastating. Because then you come and you expect others to understand what you understand as power, or what you understand as respect, or what you understand as kindness and love, and you can either lower down your guard at best, or cause others to lower down their guard, and then they pay the heavy price. You sit in Europe, in New York, in some woke coffee shop somewhere, and you end up causing others to pay an ultimate price of death and terrible, displacement, because you convince them that your language is correct for them. In the Middle East, people need to understand it's a culture, especially when it comes to the Arab world. Let's talk about the Arab world in the Middle East, starting from Saudi Arabia all the way to the area of Israel right now, Lebanon, Syria, the Muslim empire in general, which was the biggest empire almost to ever exist in terms of expansion at its peak. The common language that was always spoken and that dictated everything was power and respect. If you had power, you gained respect. If you lost power, you lost respect, and people took advantage of you. And what happened is, in the West, especially in America, I would say, and I lived in America and I worked there, and in Europe, I'm living right now in Europe, and I see that, we often see diplomacy as power. Let's say me and you, Daniel, have an argument about a table, and I want to come and take your table. Now, you're stronger than me, and you'll come and say, no, I'm not giving my table. And then I come and I slap the table, I push the books down, and I stand up. Now, you can probably right now stand, beat the crap out of me, break all my bones, and take back your table. Or you choose, you know what, for the sake of peace, let's talk. You want to share the table with me? Here, no problem. Have this part, I have this part. We can both enjoy the same table. All your friends in Team America, Team West will stand and say, man, this Daniel is such a strong person. He had composure. He could have broken all of his bones and humiliated that idiot, but instead he chose to actually come with a way of peace and that everybody can enjoy. And everybody will clap their hands. In his eyes, in the Arab world, he will say, Daniel is not as strong as he thought he is, or as he says he is. If he was, he would not let me. That means he's weak, so I'm going to take advantage. So you have completely different languages right now. Your friends clapping their hand, think, oh, you're such a good guy. His friends are telling you, listen, you just went and smacked the table, disrespected him, and he didn't do anything to you. That means you can do more. And you see that in the way that they treat societies. When they come to the West, they run away from Sharia, but the first thing they want to do is they want to implement Sharia, and they start demanding it. And then they see people are actually coming their way. Yeah, it's their culture, let them have it. And, okay. And then they go and start harassing your women. And then they go and start forcing their way. They even go to start burning synagogues and churches in your countries. Look what's happening in England and in Europe. And they start walking in the streets shouting Allahu Akbar in the subways. Now, some kind of woke European or American say, oh, that's so nice that they feel comfortable here to shout Allahu Akbar. No, in their eyes, they're thinking, if he would have came to my country and shouted Elohim Gadol, Shema Israel, or Christ is King, we would have killed him. He would have not dared to do that. So in his eyes, he is showing you the ultimate way of disrespect and dominance. And every time they do that, the West, instead of actually speaking the same language and telling him, no, not here. If you come here, you respect our ways, our values, you respect women, you respect human rights, you respect LGBTQ rights. Doesn't matter which right, you respect freedom and democracy. You don't do that, get out of here. But if you come in and start telling me, it's okay, I understand where you're coming from, you think that you're speaking the language that is more superior, call it, or, more understanding, more enlightened. He sees it as a pure sign of weakness, and he will be tempted to abuse it. Now, I'm generalizing in a very big way, but it doesn't matter, because in the end of the day, there's quite a lot, if not even the majority, think that way. So just because you have a friend called Munira or Samira sitting somewhere right now rolling their eyes, it doesn't matter. It doesn't change the fact that Ahmed Mahmoud Abdul Jabbar standing right now in the subway are shouting these things. That's what they mean. And then they go and they start doing all the stuff that they're doing. And that's why every place that you have mostly Islamic Arabic migration that came to the West, if it's not countered with clear understanding of the rules of power and respect, it goes to chaos. Look at Israel. In Israel, it's one of the safest places to be an Arab. And I'm telling it as an Arab myself, as a Druze, native to that language. You go to Israel, and you feel completely free to speak Arabic in the streets with your dentist, with your bus driver, speak Hebrew, speak English, doesn't matter what. And everybody's behaving very well because these rules are very clear. We don't play games. If you come and try to take our society, take our culture, take our children, our women, we're going to stop you. And if you need, we're going to put you in jail. If you need, deport you. So places that understand the language of the Middle East, the language of the Arab man, and Israel understands it, I'm saying better than, let's say, America or Europe. They're still quite behind in understanding it compared to, let's say, the Druze or other Arabic minorities there that know the language even better. Or some even Jews that came from Arabic countries. They know the language very good. That's why they're so successful in the army and the special forces and the Mossad and the Shabak, because they speak the language of the Arab man. So that is the whole idea of power and respect that I think that the West keep missing.
I watched an interview with Dr. Gadsad, and he brought an example to what you're saying. He said that we know, I think in 2011, 2012, Yahya Sinwar, when he was in prison, he had a tumor, and then they operated on the tumor and they saved his life. But the way that he wanted to repay them was with October 7th. Why? Because he saw that as weakness. While we, be thankful you saved my life. So do you think that Israel, since October 7th, they're learning more about this? If you're not powerful, if you don't show strength, then you're not going to have peace. Do you think that before October 7th, they were more political about it? Now they are more willing to go out and show their strength? Do you see a difference in Israel since October 7th?
So absolutely, I see a difference, and I'm also very worried about some things where it's going. The difference is Israel woke up and started speaking the language of the Arab men, and they spoke the language of power and respect and dominance, and they basically defeated almost all their enemies. You can say Israel before October 7 and after October 7 is a much safer place. We're almost right now very close to defeating the Iranian threat of nuclear annihilation of the state of Israel. Assad regime fell down. Hezbollah was completely deleted with a bunch of nerds clicking a button and just, cutting them off the face of the earth. They don't like to hear that, but it was a bunch of IT people in Israel that defeated the entire regime of Hezbollah and all their might, with Mossad and the bright minds of the Jewish and the Israelis. Now, for a short time, Israel was speaking the language of power and respect, but I'm starting to see that fade away. And why am I saying I'm worried? Because Americans also understood the language for a very short time. There was a very short window right after 9/11 that America started understanding this language. There is people that speak a different language than us, have different values, and they want to come and destroy us. But then, very shortly, they went back to starting catering for these people, and at certain points at the peak with Obama as the president and others started even paying back money to Iran. Like, look what they're doing right now. Who in his sane mind would agree to send money to such regime? They've killed more innocent civilians in 4 days than the entire war in Gaza in 1 year. Let that sink in. In 1 year, the amount of death in Gaza by the IDF to the Palestinians, which were mostly terrorists and hiding behind their own civilians as human shields and kidnapped, women and children and babies, less people died in 1 year of massive war against an enemy than by the Iranian regime against their people in 4 days. So that's how evil that regime is. So shortly after 9/11, forgot who the real enemy is and what kind of powers in the Middle East. And they kind of, and now the peak of it is basically they have a borderline Muslim Brotherhood mayor who is a clear anti-Semite with his whole cabinet that is completely delusional in the same city where 9/11 happened. So my fear to Israel is now that we brought back the last hostage. Thank God. And he can, go back to an eternal rest in the land of his fathers, and his family can sit a shiva on him and can have the body of their son buried in Israel. So the question is, will Israel now continue speaking that language, which is saying, we know that we are a beacon of morality, we know that we are the only democracy in the Middle East, and we're going to shape the Middle East in our image, an image of morality, of freedom of religion, of respect to other religion, and protection over minorities, because that's the only place that protects minorities, actually, in Israel. If you look at Syria, that's the exact opposite. Syria is like Gaza 2.0 on steroids, in a much larger scale. People don't understand it yet. Syria is probably the biggest threat to Israel coming soon. Behind it is Turkey. Turkey is taking the role of Iran very, very fast as we're speaking, and no one is talking about it. Syria is becoming its proxy, like Gaza was the proxy of Iran to destroy Israel. Syria is becoming the proxy of Turkey that want to create some kind of a Muslim Caliphate dominance in the Middle East. And we're seeing the same language, and Qatar behind just jumped ship. Instead of sponsoring now Iran and Hamas, let's sponsor Syria and Ahmed al-Shara. So you have the money, you have the muscle, and you have the proxy. The same thing engulfing Israel is happening as we speak. So if Israel slowed down now, we will end up dealing with the same October 7th scenario, only coming from the north of Syria and by Turkey in the next 5-10 years, undoubtedly. I think undoubtedly, especially with the way that America, the younger generation, is getting very confused about who's their allies and who's their enemies, and kind of who is what is what and who is who. And I think that's going to be a very, very dangerous world to live in if we don't finish the job now.
Why do you think it is that Israel is constantly pressured to behave like a European country in a Middle Eastern reality? What do you think is the biggest mistakes that these Western diplomats make when they deal with this region?
I think it's anti-Semitism at an administration level, coming mostly from Europe, but also embedded in almost every country around the world that have found an excuse how to weaken Israel. Their worst nightmare is that Israel would live in peace and the enemies of Israel defeated. So how do they do that? By keep condemning Israel, but keep holding Israel's hands back under the sky of morality, human rights, and etc. While it's clear to every sane person that have a little bit of a knowledge about the Middle East what is the moral thing to do. I'll give you an example. Let's go back to Syria again. In Syria now, there's more ISIS flags and Al-Qaeda flags than ever before. They just released all the ISIS prisoners from their jails. The whole government in Syria is compiled of Al-Qaeda, ISIS, and Al-Nusra, which are 3 terrorist organizations. And under them, there's about 24 more designated terrorist organizations. And under them, there's about 40 or even more. Syria have more terrorist organizations than Israel have a startup. That's like the startup version of Syria compared to Israel. We pop startups, they pop terrorist organizations. But they put a suit on, which is a camouflage way, and they convince the West that they're a good partner. Now, the West, instead of trying to help, let's say, stabilize Syria, which meaning strengthen the Kurds, they're very secular Muslims, very secular, very respectful, very good ally for America, never betrayed America, and actually very empowering to women and to other cultures, strengthen the Druze, strengthen the Christians, strengthen the Alawites and the Yazidis there, which you know that you drastically remove the chance of another October 7 and a complete catastrophe and instability for the Middle East. That's like a no-brainer. The West is pushing to strengthen the Al-Qaeda, ISIS regime and try to paint it as a good regime, while on the ground, everything is speaking differently. Like on the ground, what we're seeing in Syria is only ISIS and Al-Qaeda style of kidnapping, sex-slaving, beheading in the most horrific way, like October 7 in a grand scale even is happening. So it seems to me that in Europe, like even now, they refuse to declare Iran as the Islamic Republic regime of Iran as a terrorist organization. What kind of a sane, moral country and a leadership will refuse to do that while there's more than about 30 to 40 to 50, some even say more, bodies of innocent people in the streets? They're literally piling up bodies, bringing trucks full of bodies and dumping them for the families to come and pick them up and killing them in the most horrific way. So while this is happening, they have such a difficult time to call it out. This is like extreme level of evil that we saw during the times of the Nazis, which back then, these nations were not very moral when you think about it. Everybody knew what was happening to the Jews. They had satellite images, they had, airplane images and etc. They had it. It was there. But they kind of chose to ignore it until things happened, and then everybody jumped on the train of never again. Same thing is happening now. So I think there is still rooted deeply anti-Semitism at an establishment level, and also just political corruption. And there's a lot of money involved, and there are a lot of powers involved, and they just don't want to do the right thing. Because to do the right thing will be to let Israel go unleashed. go and like Israel is doing them a favor. Israel is literally doing them a favor by going and defeating all their enemies. Israel did them a favor when they defeated Saddam Hussein, when they took Saddam Hussein's nuclear plant. Everybody thanked Israel after that. God forbid that maniac who was using chemical weapon in his own people and the Iranians and other people around, if he would have had a nuclear weapon, I mean, you saw what kind of lunatic he was. So everybody was like, oh, Israel, you warmonger. Oh, Israel, thank you. Same thing is going to happen with Iran. Imagine if Iran had a nuclear weapon now. Wow. So Israel keeps doing the dirty work for the West. But in the West, you have, I would call them, borderline traitors of Western values that are in key positions that just don't want this to happen. So they keep looking for every excuse to hold back Israel. And now they're trying to even weaken Israel in the eyes of America by trying to paint it like Israel is, leading America to do all kind of stuff, and America should detach itself from Israel, which is a complete opposite. If you look at it, Israel is like an aircraft carrier, land-based in the Middle East for America that is actually almost completely independent and just doing the job for Israel and for America. And once in a while, they just call America, can you Uber here a few B bombers and just, they can sleep and watch Netflix all the way. We did all the job. They can just come. We'll show them some Mossad agent with laser. Okay, over here, drop, boom. Okay, thank you. Go back. We just defeated one of your enemies that wanted to nuke you guys, by the way. They keep chanting death to America every morning and they hate you more than us. So somehow they're trying to paint Israel as if Israel is the bad guys that is controlling America, while Israel is also doing the dirty job for America and for planet Earth and for Team West. So I think that is one of the main problems that we have here, that there's literally forces out there that are anti-West, anti-democracy, and also extremely anti-Semitic that were never defeated. Nazi Germany fell down, but anti-Semitism did not disappear. And it was a very evil force that is not only anti-Semit, by the way. It's anti-West, it's anti-planet Earth in so many ways. Just one of the main symptoms that it had, which always these dictatorship regimes have, is that they hate Israel. So it just became kind of a very easy spot, like, okay, let's see, how can I spot the bad guys in the world? If you want to filter through them all, go to the Excel sheet, put hate Israel. Boom, okay, you got 30 countries. Okay, bad guys are there. Now let's focus more in. So you already can filter through just by seeing who's an anti-Semit, because that's usually a symptom, a very clear symptom of anti-West, anti-democracy, freedom.
Now, what's a little bit confusing is you see Trump shaking hands with, Al-Jolani, with Erdogan from Turkey, Qatar, a lot of countries that are not so friendly with Israel, to say the least. Why do you think he's doing that? Is he just trying to be diplomatic? We have this board of peace for Gaza. There are a lot of things that it seems like Israel doesn't have a say in. They just have to follow along. What do you think is actually happening?
I think President Trump, with all due respect, and he's done a great thing, many things, to improve the safety and stability of the Western team around the globe, have put too much trust in bad advisors, among them Tom Barak, kind of leading that group. And that's going to drag him into a mud that will stain his legacy, and he just doesn't know it yet, forever. And I'll explain. The Middle East used to be that Israel was the most reliable source for America to get a clear picture of who is who, what is what. Because it's very clear to know. You just travel to Tel Aviv and travel to New York and you'll see the difference. Okay, they're very similar in the morality, in the level, in the ideology, and in their end goal, where they want to go as a civilization. Very similar, sharing a lot of very Judaic-Christian Western values. But all of a sudden, bad advisors like Tom Barak and the Saudis have convinced Trump that the real partner to ensure stability in the Middle East and the interest of America is actually Turkey and Saudi Arabia, which have a clear Sunnah agenda, and Qatar. And Israel became like a side voice that is, okay, you're like a good friend, but you're not with the cool guys anymore. You're not sitting in the back of the bus. I'm sitting with the cool guys. Israel, I know, I've listened to you enough. Now I'm listening to them. They know better. And they're tricking him and fooling him to believe that the way to secure the stability is actually to unite Syria under one strong leadership so it doesn't fall to the hands of Russia and China. And who is that strong leadership? Al-Jolani, which is ISIS. Now, ISIS is a big enemy of America. And all of a sudden, look at the ground. What they did, they went immediately and released all the ISIS prisoners. There's more ISIS flags right now in Syria than before. There was like merch shops selling ISIS teddy bears and ISIS like hats, like literally in Syria right now, fully on. They're not hiding it. Soldiers are walking with Al-Qaeda and ISIS patches, official soldiers of the government. But what? He wears a suit. And Turkey says he's a good guy. Now, what they're doing is they're convincing America that this is the right way to move. And that's going to create an ally, a big ally, a strong ally that will not fall to the hand of China and Russia, but will stay in Team West. But that ally is not your ally, really. He's just playing you. He's using you because the whole idea of Al-Qaeda and Nusra and ISIS before was to take Iraq and Syria and then go back and take over the world. And when they take Iraq and Syria, they need to establish first the caliphate properly there, which means to annihilate every kuffar, every minority, and to establish extreme Salafi Sharia law. That idea was never abandoned, and actually in practicality we're seeing it right now happening full scale. Syria have become a death trap for every minority, Christians, Druze, Alawites, Kurds, like they're killing them right now, and they're doing their own original plan. And later on, America to think that they will become their friends is very delusional and is going to come back at them. Where do you think these ISIS fighters, some of them have foreign passports that were released from these jails, where are they going to end? They're going to end up in Europe and back in New York City. So I think the USA, when it comes to Syria, is being played by Turkey, by Erdogan, and it's been soothed into the administration by Tom Barak, who is a Lebanese, from what I understand, Christian Arab that is clearly against Israel and against the Kurds and the Druze and the minorities, and is very much in the hands of the Sunnah that is trying to replace the Shia in the leading dominance. So America is being tricked to play to help a grandiose dictatorship that have dreams of becoming the next caliphate, and they're basically using America's business mentality right now, because America is treating the Middle East like it's a business. All right, you buy here, you sell here, you bankrupt here, you sell here, and you like deal with business. That can work when Jeff Bezos bought Toys R Us and kind of backstabbed them and made like an empire for himself and completely deleted Toys R Us from the face. Okay, that works in business. People, gets really sad. They go back home. He can't buy a yacht to himself and his family. Now he's going to go do another job. But in the Middle East, when you play that with humans, you end up creating enemies. You end up hurting a lot of people. And you end up empowering very evil regimes that you're going to have to deal with them. If the West would have not empowered Iran 45 years ago and supported them, we would have not need to deal with the war that is happening right now. Same thing is happening right now with Turkey and Syria. If America will not empower Turkey and Syria now, we will not need to deal with a war with them in 20, 30 years max, or even more before. It's going to be a very bad one. So I think America should be really careful who is giving advices to who, because the Syrian mud is a very bad mud to enter. It's like to try to solve the Syrian problem like it's a chess game. It's not 3D chess anymore. It's like playing 3D chess through a black hole in a portal to another dimension through a time machine. Like, against there's no way you can, there's so many moving factors there that you can't put in place that every single one of them can just blow up in your face. And it is blowing up in their face. And I think America should stay back, get out of this. Don't support Jawlani. Don't talk with Turkey. Don't let them push the rings. And also don't let Saudi Arabia and Qatar lead them, because they don't have the same values like they do. Not even remotely.
Why do you think it is that ISIS-style movements thrive in these vacuums? And why is it that the Kurds are repeatedly betrayed by international actors? We saw what happened with the Druze before. Why does it seem like they're being betrayed constantly?
So to your first question about ISIS, if you look at the doctrine of ISIS, it's actually very close to the original Quran, which is like the basic foundation of the faith. So they say that, we got soft and we got heavily politicized and westernized. Let's go back to the Quran. Very clear picture. Who's an infidel, who's not, who needs to die, who needs to be our slave and pay us money. And also what's the role of a woman and what's the role of a child, and what can you do with, the wife of your enemies that you just slain. Like very clear, basic, primitive, barbarian rules. And my theory is when Islam is left unchecked, it will always by default go down to the path of violence and oppression. That's the nature of that religion, and they don't try to hide it. It's a very aggressive religion. They say it's a religion of the sword. If you look at all their flags, and all, it's always a sword. It was started as a religion that was main goal was to conquer the world through war, and left unchecked, it will always go back to that default setting. Countries that manage to do proper Islam and still are very peaceful are ones that have heavy restrictions against any radicalization. Dubai and other places in the Emirates, and even Saudi Arabia is trying to some extent. And you see, okay, when they actually put heavy restrictions, for example, the Emirates have just made a law that they're going to stop sponsoring students going to study in England because they're afraid that they would get radicalized. So they're afraid to send Muslims to a Christian country because they might get radicalized by Islam. in a Christian country. So they know how to control and contain Islam so they can enjoy the good aspects of Islam, which they have good aspects in it, in that culture. If you look during the time of Salah ad-Din, which was a Kurd, by the way, he's considered until today the most brave and admired leader in the Muslim world. During his time, he was actually way more moral than the Christians. He have shown way more dignity and morality. Now, everybody was doing crazy stuff back then, but still, he was a very admired man, a very noble man. And they managed to go down from there until today and just go back to the extreme. So you have like points where they go up to some kind of a status quo that is okay. They can coexist with other religions around to some certain extent, and then they always fall down. And it's because it's just very easy to drag down in that religion because the foundation of the religion is very clear. It's about colonizing the world and converting everybody by force. And that's why I say a lot of times when they ask me if I have a problem with Islam, I said, I have a lot of Muslim friends and I have no problem with them, but with that religion, I do have a problem. And when it comes to these friends, the place where I put the line, if I have a problem with our friendship or not, with anyone, not only a Muslim, is if he wants to convert me by force. So if I'm sitting with you and I feel that you down inside want to convert me to your religion or kill me, then we can't be friends, man. But if I sit with you and you believe that your religion is right and it's a good way, but you respect my way, you can deep inside think like if he would only join us, he would enjoy Shabbat so much and he would join that culture. And okay, that's great. That's like me thinking like, yeah, if he would actually come and live like the Druze, they would have a really peaceful life. That's fine to have these things. You think your way is a good way and you would wish it for the other, but there's no single inch in my bone that want to convert you to become a Druze or you want to convert me to become a Jew. And that's why I think Judaism and Druze in general live very well together. When it comes to Christianity, they are missionary, but they have a very peaceful, hippie-like kind of turn your cheek to your enemy, pray for your enemies, and you need to really come and just want it from your heart, and then you will go and get baptized and you'll convert. Now, yes, some people took it to the extreme, but they had to do a lot of mental backflips. Islam is a complete opposite. It tells you that you need to convert others by force. It tells you that you're allowed to lie to them in order to fool them so you can come inside them and become bigger than them and then convert them. So it's like a textbook full of strategy of how to annihilate other religions and ways of life and convert them, and if not, kill them and make them as slaves. So if a Muslim doesn't come and abandon that desire to convert you, it's going to be very hard to be a true friend with him. So I do have, let's say, great Muslim friends that I see that they completely adapted Western culture, and freedom and just, live and let live. But they're too afraid to speak it out loud because then they might get killed by their own colleagues. So there is a problem there. So when it comes to ISIS, whenever it's left unchecked, it will undoubtedly fall to the likes of ISIS. And let me tell you a secret. In Syria, ISIS and Al-Qaeda are the more moderate terrorist organizations right now. There's about 27 of them that are more extreme than ISIS and Al-Qaeda. And under them, there's about 40 more that are family and tribal kind of groups that are affiliated with ISIS, but their own terrorist organizations. They listen to their own leader and their own, uncle and tribe leader. And they're way more extreme. And that's why they're actually very upset with Al-Jawlani, because when he came and took over that country, he did it with the blessing of these tribal terrorist groups. And he promised them that when we take Syria, we will bring it to the real Caliphate of Islam, how it should be. And then you can go and kill your enemies and take their wives and plunder their stock and do whatever you want, just as the times of the Quran, because God is with us. But now he's not doing it because Israel is not letting him do it in the south. And America is kind of like, hey, man, listen, we're being your friend, but why did you just release all of the ISIS prisoners? Like, we literally told you we'll help you defeat the Kurds. So we kind of betrayed our allies here, the Kurds, to help you because you promised us that you're going to control this country and make it stable. And the first thing you do is you go and you release ISIS, like in thousands, the first thing. And then the second thing you do is you're going dragging women in the street by their hair, killing them, violating them, and cutting their hairs. And then all of your guys having patches of Al-Qaeda and ISIS. And what I feel is that in terms of foreign policy, America have realized that the American average citizens have no clue what is happening in the Middle East. And as long as it doesn't reach them in a way of another 9/11, they can basically do whatever they want. So it's not that crazy that they betrayed their ally, the Kurds, and jumped ship with Al-Qaeda and ISIS, because that's clearly what they are, because it's not going to reach the average American person. And I feel that's a big problem, because if the average American person would come and wake up and ask a question, wait, weren't ISIS our enemy? Weren't Al-Qaeda our enemy? Why are we actually now helping Al-Qaeda and ISIS? And why did we just betray the ones that actually defeated ISIS on our behalf? You asked about the Kurds. That was the second question. So the Kurds were the one who defeated ISIS on behalf of them and America and Team West. America was looking for an ally in the Middle East that can help them fight ISIS without sending their own soldiers and boots on the ground and having a lot of Americans die. And they found these brave community of the Kurds where there's about 40 million of them. They're the only group that is that big that have no nation, no country. And they're scattered between the whole Middle East, Syria, Iraq, Lebanon, a little bit Lebanon, more in Iran, and etc. And they helped them create this army that they have, which was extremely effective in defeating ISIS. They were called even ISIS hunting units, and even extremely also modern and liberal in terms of feminism. Like they have women there that are brigadier soldiers, snipers, special forces. They even have their kululush, but they don't do it for weddings. They do it like Xena, the princess warrior. That's like a battle cry. When ISIS fighters, because they believe if they get killed by a woman, they go to hell. So they believe that if they get killed by a man trying to fight for jihad, it's an expedited ticket to go to heaven, that they can get a lot of virgins there. So either he will defeat these guys and take his wives, and maybe some of his daughters are virgins, or he will just go die in the process and go to heaven and he will get all of these things. But if he dies to a woman, then everything was lost. So when they hear this Kurdish brave women with no hijabs on their hair, Muslim ladies, running around, fierce warriors, they start shaking and they run and they just, disappear and they're like terrified. And so the Kurds were a great ally for America to fight ISIS, but all of a sudden, Tom Barak have convinced America, because Turkey hates the Kurds very much. And here's the thing, the Kurdish people, they come before Islam, and they kept some of their proud tradition. And when they integrated into Islam, they kind of earned their respect, earned their keep. Why? Because they brought Salah ad-Din al-Ayyubi, and he created this dynasty of fierce warriors and strategians that helped expand Islam like never before. He defeated the Crusaders, which the Christians were the biggest enemy of Islam. Until today, actually, as a main thing, as the Muslim Ummah, they see the Christians are their biggest enemy. And who is the Christian? The West, Team Europe and Team America. Even if they don't think they're Christians anymore, they still see them as the Christians. So they have the fatwa to go and finish the job because they never finished it because they lost. So the Kurds were the one who led Islam into victory. And the Kurds are a much more secular version of Islam. And Muslim Brotherhood Islam, like Turkey and like the Muslim Brotherhood, like Syria, they fear and they hate the Kurds because if their way will go, their way will disappear. But you ask yourself, wait, but you're both Sunnah. Like, why do you hate each other so much? And the answer is because they're not Muslim enough according to them. They don't oppress women. They don't hate enough Israel and Christians. Like, it's crazy that this is literally the criteria. Why do we hate them so much? They don't hate Israel enough. They actually like Israel. That's not good. They don't hate America. Hey, what's going on? And they let women lead over men. What is going on? So you ask yourself, well, how is it that the Kurds are not by default the best ally for America and for the woke student in universities to side by? Like, they're literally the ones you want to stand with, all the feminists out there. If you want to still be an anti-Semite, and it might sound crazy, if you're sitting right now and saying, I want to be an anti-Semite, so I don't want to like Israel, okay. You can still be an anti-Semite and still stand with the Kurds. You can still be an anti-Semite and still stand with the people of Iran. They're Persians. You can still stand by the side of them and still hate the Jews if that's your thing. But they don't. And that is because they got so heavily manipulated by Team Muslim Brotherhood, which right now, the leadership of that is becoming Turkey, and like I said, and Qatar, who was playing the puppeteer with Iran and with Hamas, is now shifting to support Turkey, and their next boy is not Sinwar, is Jawlani, and it seems to be that Team America have fallen for that, and like I said, it's going to blow in their face.
Can you get into a little bit why the Druze chose the alliance with Israel instead of the wider Arab world? What do they understand about this region that others ignored?
The Druze and many minorities who managed to survive total annihilation under Muslim occupation for a very long time have done that because they kept secret and they went to the mountains and learned to fight and hide very well. And for 1,000 years, every group under Islam that is not still Muslim, you need to look at them and take your hat off. It's like, wow, how did you guys survive for so long? And when the Jews first came to Israel, it was a sandbox. Everybody was fighting everybody. The Jews were fighting the Jews, were fighting the Muslims, everybody was fighting everyone. But very fast, the Jews and the Druze realized, wait, these guys are different. They're not a new occupier, colonizer that want to convert and control. They actually want to live with us. They actually want to create this country, make it a better place, and they're offering a hand to come and join them. I think no minority have ever experienced that before in the Middle East for a very long time under the Muslim occupation, because up until then it was just killing and killing and killing and oppressing. And all of a sudden comes this group that says, guys, listen, we came back, we've been away for a very long time, this is our home, but we know that you're living here, so let's build something together. And the Druze, when they saw that, they were shocked. But also the Jews, who got so used to people trying to kill them and destroy them, suddenly saw a group of religion that have no incentive in killing them, no converting them. You cannot become a Druze, you can only be born Druze. It's a closed religion. It closed because of the oppression and the persecution of Islam. So then they made this blood covenant. And until today, it's the only two ethnical groups in Israel that have all the rights and obligations. All the rights and obligations. Others have all the rights, but not all the obligations. And I'll explain. If you're a Christian Arab in Israel or a Muslim or any other religion that is not Jewish or Druze, you don't have to serve in the army, but you'll still get citizenship. You'll still get, the entire kind of spectrum of freedom of religion and the business and etc. The Druze have to go and serve, and the Jews, because they made that covenant from the beginning, we will share this load together and we will make this country great together. And if you go in Israel today, I always laugh about it. I think the Jews love the Druze more than they love themselves. If I drive a taxi in Tel Aviv often, and the taxi driver will ask me like, hey, start talking, where are you from? I'm from this village. Oh, are you a Druze? I said, yes. All right, you don't need to pay. Like that happened to me several times. I said, what? He says, no. If it was a Jew, I will tell him to pay. But the Druze, we love you guys so much. You guys, been so kind to us. You love us. You sacrifice so much for us. And the same thing, like if you go to a Druze village, you'll find more Israeli flag flying in a Druze village more than in a Jewish city. So the Druze and the Jews have realized that this is the right way to live, which is a proper coexistence. And that's where the tricky part that has not been told to the West, especially the people who believe the lies of the Nakba and others. When the Jews came back to the land of Israel and established the Jewish country, all the Arab nations gathered to come and destroy them. From the river to the sea, this genocidal attempt started from day one. And there was a memo that was sent. There was no emails back then, so a memo was sent from ear to ear, pigeons, people running with horses or donkeys. And they told all the Arab villages there, get out of your homes, go to Jordan, go to where you came from, basically. Go to Jordan, go to Syria, go to Lebanon, or go to Egypt. That's literally, they came from there, so they told them, go back there, live with your families, stay out of here for 2 weeks. All the armies are going to come with all their might, going to kill all the Jews from the river to the sea, and then you can come back and take their homes, take their stuff, take their wives, and, we'll clean this land from Jews. We'll finish what Hitler started and didn't finish. That was like the whole idea. How do I know that? Because my grandfather told me that. So he was told, among many others, because they also reached the Druze villages. So listen, guys, because the Druze had to live in a hidden identity back then. So many thought them, okay, they're just a different offshoot of Muslim. They're Muslims, kind of confused, but they're Muslims. So some of them, they treated us like, okay. So they brought the memo to them as well. Now the Druze came and said, no, we're not going to leave. We're not going to abandon the Jews. We're going to stand here and fight beside them. And I know that because that tragic story is the reason that my family got separated between Israel and Syria and Lebanon. Because my grandfather, his name was Mansur, I'm named after him, had 2 brothers, Amin and Muhammad. And they were older than him, and they had wife and children. He was still single. He was a bus driver. And they came and told him, listen, Mansur, they just told us the armies are coming. They're going to come and kill all our Jewish friends here. Maybe it's not a good idea to stay here right now. We have women and wife and children. So my grandfather said, listen, I'm not going to hold it against you. Go back to your mountain in Syria. Like I said, everyone went back to where they came from. So some to Jordan, some to others. Egypt, go back to your mountain in Syria. I'm going to stay here. I'm going to stay here. I'm going to stay with my Jewish brothers. I'm going to fight beside them. Same thing with my grandfather from my mother's side. They decided to stay. And they stayed and they fought and they won. And the borders of Israel got established. And then the border between Syria and other countries were completely cemented around Israel. And since that day, until the day my grandfather died, he never saw his brother again because he was not allowed. And he actually passed away shortly after he heard that his brother passed away, because he used to go every year to the Shouting Mountain, we call it, up in the Hermon. We used to go there and we'd stand with a megaphone and we'd see with a binocular our relatives, and they will come. There was no WhatsApp and text messages back then. And then we'll just shout to each other. And and then my grandfather was like, and then you'll see him with a binocular and he's like, how is your son Amin? Yes, he just got married last week or 2 years ago, and here's his son, and they lift me up, and here's my grandson. That's how they used to talk to each other, because they couldn't come back to each other. But that separation happened because countries came to destroy the Jews, and all of the Muslim around supported that idea, but they lost. And then they ran away, and now they complain and they create the Nakba narrative. But then you can come and ask them, and that's why they don't like the Druze, by the way, because we make them look bad. Because we say, wait a second, you didn't have to murder the Jews. They didn't come to kill you. They actually offered, just like us. We got the same offer like you. Same offer. Let's build this country together. We said yes. You said no. Look what happened. So that is something that is not often told to college students when they try to figure out the story of Israel. Oh, you came and you stole the land from them. No. Then why didn't they steal the land from me? How come I still have my house in the village? Answer that. They can't.
Do the Druze communities outside of Israel see Israel as their only real protector? Like, what was going on in Syria? They were calling out for Israel to help. Is that the way that all the Jews feel, or is there like a difference of opinion?
So for a very long time, the Druze, there's about 700,000 Druze in Syria, used to be, and about 300,000 to 400,000 Druze in Lebanon, and there was about 150,000 Druze in Israel. So we were always the younger brother, and we always looked up to them because we also became modern very fast. We started advancing with the modernization of Israel, so we started feeling like we are not as Druze as they are, because they're still lived in this Arab kind of, household and mentality and villages, and we started moving and living, there's Tel Aviv, there's Israel, high-tech, we started working in the army, advancing. My grandfather used to live in a cave. Mrar, the village I came for, is Mrara. Mrara is Me'ara. Me'ara is a cave. He was living in a cave. But when the Jewish people came here, Israel became a startup nation. He was one of the first Druze to have a TV. And back in Syria and Lebanon, like, what? So we started getting very advanced. But somehow culturally, we used to feel like they are the proper Druze, and we are like the Jews who are living in the exile, who think like, we're not as, we want to go to the Holy Land and become. But all of a sudden, with the war that happened right now, and when the Druze in Syria and in Lebanon started being slaughtered by the Muslims, who kept always telling them, you should not trust the Jews. The Jews are our enemy. You are part of the Arab Ummah. We're always with you. We're protecting you. So they were living under that belief that, because they were growing up in a very anti-Semitic environment, that the Jews are evil, and that thanks to strong Arab armies, they're protecting them from the Jews who want to come and kill them. That's the stories you used to hear. And all of a sudden, their friends who kept telling them these stories turned on them and started killing them. And the ones who came to the rescue were the Jews. Hands down, Israel, under the leadership of Bibi Netanyahu, with the Air Force and the Mossad and the Special Forces, and with the pressure of the Druze and Jewish community, not only the Druze community, Jewish community of the citizens in Israel, were the reason that the Druze in Syria were not annihilated. I'm talking full-on annihilation. What you saw is happening to the Kurds, and the Kurds had a very strong army. They had the same plan for the Druze. They went down with tanks and with Turkish-backed up drones and everything, and Israel just went and made the desert their grave. Literally went and wiped them out and told them, hands off the Druze, no one is coming down from Damascus. Stop them. Stopped a real genocide, to the point that almost every Druze today that I know, even the ones that used to hate Israel before or confused about it, they all say the same thing. Thank you, Israel. You're the only one who cared for us. And if it wasn't for you, our literal religion would have been annihilated. So Israel, who kept being called a genocidal state, have done the exact opposite. They're the one who are saving minorities from being genocided. And all of a sudden, one day I got a mail from a mother in Syria that saw some of my videos where I talked about how I admire the Druze in Syria and Lebanon. I used to look up to them in terms of the traditions. And she sent to me and said, Mansur, I want to share with you something. You, the Druze in Israel, are actually the real Druze. And that's because the Jews are not trying to oppress you. So you will get to practice fully your Druze identity and religion. Here we need to hide it. So we barely can tell our children the things that you guys tell your children freely. We cannot celebrate our holidays, but you guys celebrate it freely, even invite the Jews to come and join you at it. So actually, the only place in the Middle East where the Druze get to properly be Druze without the fear of being annihilated, killed, and having their women stolen is in Israel, because that's the only place that there's a freedom of religion that is protected by law. And that's when I realized, wow, I never thought about it that way. And then I heard from more and more Druze telling us, no, you guys are the real Druze. And that's because of the covenant that you have with the Jews. It's, call me crazy, but it's a bit biblical. Like, I am not a religious person, but I am a believer. Like, I do believe there's a God, and I do believe that there's a lot of things happening we don't understand. But one thing that I've always been fascinated with is that promise in the Bible, I would bless those who bless you, and I would curse those who curse you. Evarech mevarechecha, eor mikalelecha, or I don't remember the exact word. And it seems to me that every group that actually welcome the Jews and join with them is getting very blessed by it. And every group that gets obsessed with hatred toward them and with the desire to destroy them gets rotten first from within and then from outside and just get collapsed completely. And you can see that also with the Druze. We did that decision to stand hand in hand with the people of the book, with the people of God. And look today, we are the luckiest Druze living on the face of this world. The luckiest. I mean, you have here and there sporadic Druze that are living in Norway or in the US, which have a good life. But as a religion, like a religious center, a group, the only place that actually acknowledges us, recognizes us, and defends us is Israel.
Let's talk a little bit about Gaza, future of Gaza. Do you think it's possible to get rid of Hamas? But if you do, and even if you do get rid of Hamas, do you think a society which was indoctrinated for decades can be de-radicalized? Do you think that there is a future for Gaza that's not wishing to kill Jews and invade Israel every opportunity that they get?
I think to answer the question, you need to go a little bit back and understand when the West defeated Nazi Germany, the generals who wanted to continue were getting a lot of opposition from humanitarian groups saying the war is over, and then they said, no, we will not stop until there's not a single stone unturned in Germany where we can find there's not anymore any Nazi ideology. And they denazified Germany to the point that there's no more Nazis today in Germany. There is, I mean, here and there, like people I'm talking as a ruling strong, there's no. It's very, very regulated by their own people, and they hate it. Same thing with Japan. They got so humbled and humiliated, power and respect, to the point that they realized that they have to change their ways. The West, what they did is they ignored the Arabs. And they saw them as some kind of, these primitive guys riding on donkeys and just, playing their Allah Akbar game in the desert. Let's ignore them. But not knowing that they still hold extreme, borderline religious views that are similar to Nazi. I call it a more religious, barbarian version of Nazism, which is extremely anti-Semitic and extremely racist. And it was ignored. And then it grew and it grew and it grew. And today we're dealing with this. You're dealing with this. Every Muslim country almost on the face of this earth is an extremely failing country with the biggest violation of human rights under the sun. More people died in Sudan by the hands of Muslims in 10 days than the entire war in Gaza in 2 years. More people were killed by the Islamic regime of Iran in 4 days than the 1 year war in Gaza, and et cetera, it keeps going. And that is because the West never really dealt with denazification, call it, of the Muslim world. And there's many people smarter than me that keep talking about that. Nat Wilf and others wrote books about it where they explain this in depth. So to come and think that you have the chance to enter a household in Gaza from the age of 5 months to the age of 2 years, and the age of 2 years to the age of 5, where they teach them that it's okay to kill the Jews and the Christians, that it's the calling of Allah to conquer planet Earth and to submit them into slavery, is not only naive, it's hypocrite, and it's condescending. And that is where the indoctrination starts. It starts from education. They start doing it from a young age. And you cannot enter this household from that young age and stop that indoctrination. That's where you build your identity. Look at what all these ISIS wives and their children in Syria, they're more extreme than their fathers. They want to kill. From the age of 5, they're telling you, I want to kill you because you show your hair. Because you're an infidel, you're not a Muslim, I want to kill you, or because you're not Muslim enough. Like, that indoctrination is extremely heavy in Gaza. So I think there's no way to de-radicalize Gaza or Palestine. If you ask me, the only way to have a solution of everlasting peace in the area of Gaza is take all the Gaza and kick them away. Take them, put them in Syria, far away, let them play with their friends in jihadist town. Let them play with the people that like them, that think like them. Let them play their jihadist game. Let them oppress women. Let them do Allah Akbar and blow each other and one another. Let them do these games there. Put a big fence around them. Come back every 25 years, look through the hole. They're still oppressing women, still killing gay people, still wanting Allah Akbar, takbir, takbir, hayba, hayba, yahud. Close the door. Don't let them come. Don't let them come. Meanwhile, the West will advance. We'll go to Mars. We'll do our stuff. Technology, human life will expand and become longer. I don't know what. Health. ChatGPT, AI robots will be coming around, households doing massages and doing all the work for us, and we'll be sitting just streaming and playing VR games with our friends on Mars. Like, we'll be living in the future. They'll be still in the desert, forgive my language, humping donkeys and camels. And then one day maybe they will look like, oh, maybe we should join Team West or not. But you cannot have them among you because they're not assimilating. They're not assimilating, and they will never will be because they start educating their kids from a young age. So there's 2 ways to actually do it, which I don't think the West have the guts to do it. One end is go in and bring war to them to such epic scale that even when they cry and beg for forgiveness, and then you don't stop, you continue, just like what the West did with Nazi Germany. They went and they flattened that country completely and brought it to crushed the ideology of Nazism to such a humiliating way that it completely surrendered. Same thing with Japan. They nuked them twice. I don't think the West is willing to do that to the Muslim world. I don't think we have the guts to do that, and I think morally it's also very controversial. Don't think we should. So I think we should just let them go and play their games and stay away from them. Let them do their things. And if they want to come to our society, they need to show real clear signs that they fit in. And very clear standards. What do you think about women? What do you think about Jews? What do you think about Druze? What do you think about minorities? What do you think about killing others? What do you think about converting them? What do you think about when you become big numbers? Do you want to change everything here and completely bring it down to Sharia law? No. If you say yes, stay out of here. Get out of here. So I think Gaza will never see peace unless Islam is taken out of Gaza and sent somewhere else. If you want peace in Gaza, bring the Kurds, bring the Druze, put them there. Have Donald Trump really buy it and make it Riviera. Seriously, as long as you leave Gazans in Gaza, which are extremely indoctrinated Muslim Brotherhood, you'll never be. And if you allow Turkey or Qatar to go and be some kind of a board of peace there, you've just ensured more bloodshed and war for the next 10 years. I know a lot of people won't like to hear that, but I'm sorry, guys. You have no clue about the Middle East. You guys speak sushi. We speak hummus in the Middle East. We know the Middle East inside out way better than you. And I'm telling you, that's the reality. Go and live among these people. Stay in their households. See the indoctrination that teach their children from a young age. And to think that you can enter that household and change the way that these kids, because by the time he's 7, forget about it. You can't change him. Extreme event might happen to change him, like what happened to the son of Hamas. He went through an extreme event to change. But that's 1 out of a million that go through that. The rest, they need this extreme, they need like a truck to hit them in the face to basically wake them up. And that usually comes either by extreme force and war or by separation completely. Because the moment you mix them in, they're gonna breed and vote you out and destroy your system from inside.
This is a question that a lot of people are asking right now. We saw for over 2 years the pro-Palestine marches, every Western city, every single day, just marching and marching and marching about this genocide that's happening in Gaza. And now, like you mentioned a couple times, what's going on in Iran, tens of thousands of people being killed. And we see here, there's silence. There's just silence. Why do you think that is? Why do they not care when Jews are not involved, when Israelis are not involved? Is that the reason, or is there something else?
It's more than that. They just hate the Jews and hate Israel so much. That's why. If there was ever any doubt to anyone that these demonstrations, pro-Palestine, all these ones around it, had nothing to do with human rights, women's rights, children's rights, now you have no doubt anymore. Because why? Not only that they're not demonstrating for Iran and for the Kurds, they're actually still demonstrating for Palestine and Gaza. I just had a demonstration in the city that I'm living here during the massacres in Iran. They went in, free Gaza. So guys, free from what? Israel went in, took all the hostages, went back. Today they brought the last hostage. Like, khalas. Free from what? Why aren't you demonstrating for Iran if you care about human life? Now, even that, Hans Brunhilde and Farfed Kulda that are living in Germany, if they care about women, if they care about children, there's about 93 million in Iran. There's about 40 million Kurds around the world. There's 2 million in Gaza. So and none of them is actually related to them. So if you wake up in the morning and your name is Farfet Kulda and you want to go and look around, which group should I choose to stand for? Automatically, it makes much more sense to stand for the Kurds and for the Iranians. So if you're ignoring them, but only heavily obsessed about Palestine, but nothing about them, it leaves no place, no room for any doubt that what actually is happening is you don't care about humans. You don't care about Gaza. You just hate the Jews so much, and you hate Israel so much that you're handpicking which tragedies happening around the world that will help you delegitimize Israel and progress the agenda of destroying the only Jewish state on the face of this earth. That's the only thing. So that is what Greta is doing. That is what Candace is doing, what Tucker is doing. That is what all these activists out there are doing, because they're silent completely about the most clear oppression that is happening. The Iranian people have not kidnapped. They didn't invade and kidnap women and children. They just ran to the street and said, "Khalas, let us not wear a hijab. Let us stay in the streets. Let us have peace with our neighbors." No, you're gonna die for that. And they start killing them. The Kurds, they're killing them because they're not Muslim enough. So I think today, there's no more doubt anymore that all these demonstrators and all these people that went to these protests and did not go to stand for the Iranians and for the Kurds and other minorities in Syria are plain, in sight, anti-Semites, borderline Nazis. That's it. Like, there's no other way to explain it, because why would you say silent? Why? Today, even, there was a demonstration that is, I've got pictures sent to me from friends in Berlin that was supporting the IRGC in Palestine. So not only that we got them a gotcha, okay, gotcha, you're an anti-Semite, come on, we gotcha, because you're very good at organizing. Last week, you were literally all over the streets. All London was everybody, like 300,000 of you were in London walking the streets, all about Gaza and the children in Gaza. And now there's more children in Iran, more in Syria, more suffering terrible fate, worse. Gotcha. Okay, you got me. So now that we got to the point that we got them, and we know that they're real anti-Semites, you know what they're doing? They're not hiding it at all. They're actually going and demonstrating pro-Iran. That's like demonstrating pro-Hitler during the Nazi Germany regime, like literally, because Khomeini, if he had the chance to gas all the Jews, he would do it. He want to nuke them. He says it. They say it clearly. So that's like modern day Hitler, and they're not afraid, and they're walking in the West and saying we support him. And I'm very disappointed of Germans, honestly, because a lot of the Germans, and there's great people in Germany, but a lot of them, they like to put these stickers, F the Nazis, never again. But then, and if they will see a white guy, like skinhead with tattoos and like army boots, they'll jump over him. They will bravely go and jump over him and shame him, you Nazi, which is good. If he's a Nazi, you should not tolerate it. But then they have a Nazi just under their nose wearing keffiyeh, saying, I support the Islamic Republic of Iran. I support Sinwar. I support Ahmed al-Shara. I think all the Jews should be exterminated. I actually like Hitler. And the only thing I didn't like about Hitler is he didn't finish the job. Like, they're saying that clearly. So how come if you say never again and you say, I'm so against Nazis, how are you so tolerant towards these keffiyeh wearing, borderline religious, barbarian version of Nazism right under your nose? So I think these demonstrations that we're seeing right now should not leave anyone with a slight of a doubt that anti-Semitism is real, is contagious, is a brain disease. But what I'm fearing actually, man, is not that, Daniel. I'm fearing that the new generation just doesn't care. Like, we're looking at the Nick Fontes generation and all these like little kids, and they just don't care. Like, they couldn't care less, be a Nazi, not a Nazi. They just want to be cool, and they just want to be trendy. And it becomes trendy today to say things about the Jews. So that's my fear. My fear is that they don't care, and that's the next generation that is going to vote. And that's going to be a very dangerous place to be. When they vote, and who they vote for, scary.
Yeah. It reminds me of, you have places like Los Angeles that have a lot of homeless people. And in the very nice areas like Beverly Hills, for example, they don't have any homeless people. Homeless people are not allowed to be there. And so the people that live in Beverly Hills, it doesn't bother them. You have homeless people, but as long as they're not in the blocks that are surrounding my house, then everything's fine. I think it's the same thing with people in America. As long as ISIS is not next door, let them do what they want to do, like you mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
It's unfortunate because eventually it'll end up at your door. So if you could leave us just with a final message, and where could people find you and hear more from you?
People can find me on YouTube. I have my podcast on YouTube, the Mansur Ashkar Show, or just Mansur Ashkar. I'm also on Instagram, but mostly on YouTube, where they can find. And if they want to support my work, they can go and check my Patreon. Because after all, I became a full-time YouTuber now that I left. I used to work in security and in the military and in the defense industry before, and I left it all completely to start doing this. What I'm doing is just advocating and trying to educate people about what's happening in the Middle East. And a final message would honestly be, and it might sound like a cliche, but is bring more children and spend a lot of time with them. And if you as a parent don't spend time with your kids, you're creating a void that someone else will fill. And that someone else could be mainstream media today, which we never had before. Could be schools and universities that will teach them all kind of weird woke ideas and semi-devastating borderline, jihadist ideas. So the biggest war that is happening now is on the minds of our children. Because the enemies of America and the enemies of the West have realized that we're too strong to be defeated. They don't have the technology, the planes, the espionage systems, the brains, and the muscle to do it. Not to defeat America, not to defeat Israel. The only way they can do it is if they will wait and defeat us in 25 years from now. And how would they do that? And they're doing very well through social media. It became the eighth front, and they're winning because they have been practicing and getting ready for it for a very long time. And I think the only way for us to actually defend our children, to give them a better future, a better world, once we stop walking this earth and they're walking after us, is to make sure that we equip them with the right moral compass and guidance to what is right, what is wrong, and how does manipulation sound and look like. And when I was traveling in Africa one time, I've heard something very nice that the preacher there said. He was trying to teach his church how to identify the word of God and between false teachers and, real teachers of the word. And he came and he said, you can try, he grabbed a dollar in his hand or Ugandan shilling. And he said, you can learn about the thousand versions of a fake dollar, or you can learn how the one real dollar looks like. And then you would can identify immediately how all the fake ones look like. So I think it's much easier to learn about one and to stick on it. And I think it's very important to teach our kids the difference between good and bad and the difference between propaganda and lies that are happening around us so they can defend themselves from it. So that's why I say, spend more time with your kids. That's what I'm trying to do with my kid. I'm spending as much time as I can with him. And I think this is literally, like I said, the only way that we can hope for the radical Islam to stop being so radical and devastating is if they start teaching their kids to love life more than death. So they have the responsibility to teach their kids. We have the responsibility to teach our kids. And we should really focus on that. And I think every person should really evaluate himself and ask himself, how much time am I spending with my kids? And how much time are they spending with other platforms, YouTube, Snapchat, TikTok, I don't know what, and really focus on that. That's the final thing that I have to say here.
I couldn't agree more. Mansour, I could speak with you for hours, so we'll have to bring you back again. Thank you for, all your insights. I learned a lot, and I hope to speak to you again soon.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure to be here.